Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. So glad you joined us today to stay curious. This is May 8th, 2025, and as we like to do, we like to look at some interesting things in space history on a certain date. And over the 5 years that Marty Winkle and myself have been doing Stay Curious, I've repeated a few things and things that I kind of enjoy every year coming up. I have a big smile on my face about, and I've got one today for us about the hint is pigs on the wing, and the allusion to a Pink Floyd song back in way back in the last century. So glad that you're all with us today. I'm going to push my little button here to make sure we're all Jim Dandy here. I see that I'm live, and we've got Doug Forrest and Dave Stange on already. So Dave, here, he's the Detroit madman there. There's your little glass you got me. And cha-cha-cha. Detroit, the first big city I ever went to, from the cornfields of Findlay, Ohio, about 90 miles south of Detroit there. So hi, Julie Clay. Glad that you're joining us today. Chime in there if you will. You got a question, comment, or question for me or Marty? And I want to say hello to Marty. Say hi, Marty, on the telephone there.
Hello, everybody. How
Good.
you doing, Mark?
We're doing good. And there's your flat Marty right there, just like so gone but not forgotten. Thank you, buddy, for winding us up today this week. He'll be back next week after a nice vacation with his family. And there is the dimensionally challenged Marty Winkle, who worked on the lunar module and then over 30 years in the shuttle program, and a true national treasure like we call all of our space workers wherever you are. So got a beautiful green screen here of Endeavour being launched on its maiden voyage. That would be yesterday in space history in 1992, I think. And I got some interesting notes on that. It was a very historic mission for several reasons, and you're going to enjoy a personal anecdote or two I've heard about that from the astronauts. So Dave Stange says, where are you coming back? Julie Clay says, hi, Marty. Elena says hello. And you'll be back Monday, right, Marty?
I'll be back Saturday, but be in the studio Monday morning.
All right. And we're going to have our second Shuttle Fest planning meeting on Monday at 1:30. So those of you local involved in there, like Julie, and let's see who else is watching today. Connie, Connie's watching for sure. McDaniel. Hello, Tom Celentano and Tom Usiak chiming in there, and Dean Babcock. Well, we want to thank the Ramanujam family at GoHistoryTravel.org for their financial support of our museum. They also financed 2 of the astronauts that came to Shuttle Fest. Thank you very much. They actually did more than that, but they have a cute little site called Go History Travel with some amazing insight to some of the places that maybe you've traveled to, and also a lot of astronaut things on that, including a profile, I think a visit to every one of the Hubble astronauts Barack has done with his dad Rama and Mom Mal. So we appreciate them very much, and call me up there. Hadn't talked to you since a few days after Shuttle Fest. So we love looking at dates in history and what happened on May 8th. And a couple cool things happened on May 8th, but we got a few birthdays. One happened May 7th that we had a wonderful talk yesterday by Bob Granath. Thank you, Bob, for helping everybody stay curious. He's become quite a popular presenter, as he's always well prepared, just like his who he followed, Hugh Harris, the public affairs officer for NASA, and the voice of NASA, Hugh was, and we miss him a lot, but keep his memory alive with people like Bob telling a great story on Hangar S at Kennedy Space Center. But we've got a birthday, and that is this lady, Tamara Elizabeth Jernigan, Dr. Jernigan, if you will. an astrophysicist, born May 7th, 1959, in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And here she is, how she looks pretty much just a few years ago. What a beautiful lady, aged beautifully. She was born in Chattanooga, but as a lot of astronauts, they get moved around when they're kids, and she graduated from Santa Fe High School in Santa Fe Springs, California in 1977. She is 66 years old. 66 years old, attended Stanford University, got an engineering degree, BS in physics, master's in engineering science, and went to the University of Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley. And she got a PhD in space physics and astronomy from Rice University in Texas, probably while she was being an astronaut. From 1986 to 2001, she's got 5 missions, okay? And she's has been married to Jeffrey Wissoff. There she is with her husband after one of his missions on the runway. No, she's married to Peter Wissoff. They've got a son named Jeffrey. And they've been working at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory on astrophysics stuff. Now, I've got an interesting story to tell about Tammy. It was STS-80, I believe, that she and Tom Jones were going out for a spacewalk. And they couldn't, everything was ready, and the final moment came when you're supposed to open up the lock of the hatch to go out into the universe. And it wouldn't open. And Tom told us this story on a very good Stay Curious. You'll have to reprise. He couldn't get it open. She couldn't get it open. And to their frustration, there was something jamming the cogs of the door. Here's what jammed them right here in this black and white. You see screw over here. Yeah, I'm sure that was one of the words on their mind, screw. A screw was caught in that gear, okay? And thank you for sharing that with me on Facebook. Larry was the one that shared that on Facebook with us there. So imagine that, though. And I asked Tom Jones at dinner, not during our show, I said, man, how did you handle that? All that training, all those hours in the nuclear buoyancy lab, you and Tammy getting together, one having to know what the other's doing all the time. And here the moment has come for this spacewalk, and somebody screwed up, literally, okay? Tom Jones, Marty, looked at me and he said, training. That's all he said, training. Okay, training. And he was trained for the unexpected. You can make plans, but you can't plan the outcome. So, Tammy, thank you for that story. They both did get to do spacewalks. She did one on a later mission. I think Tom did a couple. But 5 missions to space for this young lady, 66 years old today. She certainly is on our radar list of someone we'd love to have as a guest at Shuttlefest. Well, the birthday boy today, as we see our astronaut pin and our birthday sign, who's 73 years old, is Charlie Joseph Camarda, Camarda, Camarda. There's his book that came out last fall, Mission Out of Control. He has got a degree. He was one flight, STS-114, return to flight mission of Discovery in 2005. He was in the Sardines, the largest class of 44. Maybe that's why he only flew once, that they were running out of things. And Camarda began work as a research scientist at NASA's Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia. He holds 7 patents on various innovations, including NASA's heat pipe-cooled sandwich panel. Okay, so he maybe named one of the top 100 technical innovations in 1983. So he found a way to heat up their sandwiches, I guess. He and at 14 was, of course, 114 was, of course, the return to flight with Eileen Collins as the commander there. She talks fondly of Charlie Camarda. They are, after all, New Yorkers together. There's Charlie. in an event there. So happy 73rd birthday, born May 8th, 1952 in Queens, New York. A true New Yorker from Queens. I lived in Queens a short stint of time there, and never got over the noise level there at that subway railroad track. Literally outside my window of the apartment I was living in Queens, Long Island City, Queens, exact. So thank you all for joining in today. All right, Steve Chokum says he's got he said he's watching his timer up there in Lake County Spaceport up there in Illinois. Texas brisket in the smoker today. And Steve, I first thought that was code for that the SpaceX was going to launch from Texas. But we'll be hearing about that later this month for sure. All right, what have I got racked up here? Well, we had that great talk about Hangar S yesterday with Bob Grenath. And Bob's already working on something else, and I'm going to have Bob be involved in Shuttle Fest, Marty, with our helping our press releases. So he'll be a great addition to our committee. There's Hangar S, should be a national monument, but on the National Registry, this is where the Mercury astronauts trained in 1959 to 61. Also, the chimpanzees were there, and would you just within a hair came close to having some pigs in there. Okay, that's not Hangar S by far. That's the cover of a Pink Floyd album, Pigs on the Wing, and one of their shtick things that they do at concerts, float these giant pigs. Well, why am I crazy about an animal? Actually, that album was called Animal in 1975, right there for all you rock and rollers. But did you know NASA was considering using pigs as test subjects in space? There was even drawings made of a pig in a capsule. Well, that idea was nixed this week in May 1959. There was a rocket called Little Joe, and there is the sketch of a pig in a Mercury capsule, even in its own fitted seat. There was a rocket called Little Joe that was used for many important stress tests on animals and materials, but pigs were eliminated as Little Joe flight test subjects, when studies disclosed that they could not survive long periods of time on their backs. However, McDonnell did use a pig, Gentle Bliss, to test the impact crushability support, and the test was successful. Gentle Bliss lived. Pigs on the wing, pigs in space, almost. Why pigs? Because they're very anatomically correct to the human body, as I understand it. Never taken any medical classes. And Carlton Bailey's joined us, and he said Muppets in space would be better than pigs in space. So, but there's an actual, somewhere I found this along the line, and one of my favorite stories to share every year, when NASA nixed the idea to put pigs in a Mercury capsule. Ooh-wee. And there's my daughter chiming in about bacon in space. And that's got Connie McDaniel drooling, because I know she likes bacon. But hi, Jesse. Hi, McKinley. Hi, Macy. Well, they'll learn, my granddaughters, somewhere down the line, that there was a race to the moon with America and the communist USSR in the 60s, though after we got there, Russia said they weren't going to the moon. They were just going to build space stations, which of course they did. But the top 2 Soviet space leaders and 3 government officials in charge of the moon race met on May 8th, 1969, and conceded defeat in the race to go to the moon against the USA, unless Apollo 10 was a disaster. Now, this is May 8th, 1969, Apollo 10, the dry run to the moon down to 9.5 miles, was launched on May 18th. And General Tom Stafford, Gene Cernan, all came back. Who's the orbital? Oh, it's John Young was the command module pilot. They came back 8 days later. So even before we did our dry run, they knew after seeing the Apollo 9 test, the Apollo 7, 10 days with our Apollo module, we beat them to the moon with Apollo 8 in December 68. And then in April of 69, we had the lunar module tested in Earth orbit. Everything was perfect. Of course, we're open in our society, and Russia wasn't. So there was a lot of things we didn't know about their space program, including who was running it. And that was that we only knew a gentleman named the Great Designer, and that was Sergei Korolev. And he was the great designer of the Vostok, Voskhod, and then the Soyuz spacecraft. He had an unexpected death in 1966. I think it was a botched gallbladder surgery, something like that. He was only in his late 50s. And then other players of the Russian space program took over. We need to have a great program by Gary Allgaier about that, maybe. But Korolev was responsible for the first long-range ballistic missiles, the first space launchers, the first artificial satellite Sputnik, putting the first man in space, Gagarin. And then after he died in 1966, January 14th to be exact, the Soviets lagged in space and never recovered. There was a guy named Chelomia, who was a designer of the military ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Another player, Vasily Mishin. Mishin led the lunar program after Korolev died, and we're going to see images of that. What was going to land on the moon for, there's my, follow my script here, and I know I have a beautiful montage there of Apollo 10, the dry run that we'll be celebrating May 18th or a couple days around there. All those astronauts have passed away, by the way. And of course, Gene Cernan walked on the moon, as did John Young, who are flanked by Tom Stafford, who certainly could have gone back as a commander of Apollo 13 or 14. And no, he went to Edwards Air Force Base and helped invent stealth technology. In fact, General Stafford is nicknamed the doctor of the stealth development program out there. So this is what they were looking at, what Mission was looking at. Several others that were fighting for supremacy wanted to militarize the space with their Salyut space stations, and they did. One, Almagaz, was a success. A couple of the other military ones didn't achieve orbit or failed in orbit. But that would have been the scene if Alexei Leonov probably would have been the astronaut to land on the moon. He was training for it, something a little bigger in a phone booth. One person landing, scooping up some rocks, some soil, taking a bunch of pictures, planting the flag. And they got a great idea there that it's a tripod flag there. I don't know why we didn't think of a tripod instead of pounding it into the soil. But we did 6 times, all right, into that lunar soil, the American flag. Then this part was going to go launch off. It was going to, I think it was a 2-stage vehicle and rendezvous with the orbiting Soyuz vehicle that they called Zond, Z-O-N-D. So there is a look at a real lunar lander called the L1. You see the cosmonaut looking out this conical area there. That was kind of a good idea too, that a lot of sunlight and stuff would probably reflect like crazy off of that in the metal, come to think of it. But look at the cameras on top and things like that going on. But they never got a chance to try to use it. So, well, let's segue to the shuttles of the month of May. You followers of our Stay Curious program know that this is something we insist that we learn about and know about, the legacy of our 135 shuttle launches, completely successful 134 missions that have changed society. And look at these missions that we have going on. We've got interplanetary mission, STS-30, Magellan to Venus. We're going to talk about STS-49, the maiden flight of Endeavour. 125 is the Hubble telescope last time we saw it in 2009. So do the math there. Wow. Is that really 16 years ago when mankind last laid their eyes on that fabulous telescope? And on and on. 132, a hard hat mission to the space station. 84, Mir mission with Russia. 134, the last mission of Endeavour. Can't wait to see out at the California Science Center. We got 77 was a science mission. 101 to the Mir space station. 96. I think that's when Tammy Jernigan did her spacewalk. And then a Kibo Observatory, STS. Oh, I'm looking at it here. I've got my picture there, getting out of the way. STS 124 Kibo. All great missions. Think about that. All the accomplishments there. 10 shuttles launched. Only Challenger in Columbia didn't fly in May. OV-103, Discovery had 2 missions. Atlantis 5 and OV-105, Endeavour had 3 missions. So 65 tickets punched, okay? But going to space twice were 5 different men in the month of May. Michael Good, Box Johnson, Drew Feusel, David Ham, and Chamatov. All right, all went to space twice. So we're going to talk about this little goodie here. I, the other day, went through the meaning of this Endeavour. It was Captain Cook's voyage of Endeavour. The flags, Endeavour was the replacement, okay, for Challenger. It was absolutely the one built from scratch to replace the fleet. The HMS Endeavour, the sailing ship of Captain James Cook. All of the shuttles are named after English ships of discovery, but the flag's flying there, high up there. They had a contest to name the shuttle. School kids were involved. I think this was the first President Bush's term, and so a middle school, Senatobia Middle School in Mississippi, and Tallulah Falls School in Georgia. That's their colors that are waved there, as they got the honor to name this thing. So very interesting mission on the always these maiden flights always give me some interest to share a little bit about them, as well as the astronauts there. And I've gotten to have some nice talks with 2 of these wonderful astronauts. But let's see this. Dan Brandenstein, 4 flights, his 4th and last. Incredibly, he's not in the Hall of Fame. Then you got Chili Chilton back there, but on the far left there. Let's just go in the middle, of course, is Kathy Thornton, her 2nd of 4 flights. And to the left of Kathy is Bruce Melnick, both great friends of our museum. In fact, we have Kathy's blue suit in the Women's Gallery. You'll see that in a minute. This was Bruce's 2nd and last flight. Then behind Bruce on the left, that's my birthmate, Kevin Chilton, Chili Chilton. He is I think 3-star general, one of the astronauts that's achieved the furthest in the Air Force. Then back there you've got Richard Heeb, Tom Akers, and Pierre Thouet. Pierre's in the middle, Akers is way in the back left. So over here at the top right is Heeb. So anyway, those 3 did something very extraordinary we'll talk about here. We've got the launch that we use for the beautiful here. That is a shot by the USSR clan, Mark Tom, Steve Nolte, and Bob Pearson. What a gorgeous liftoff. What was the time? Was 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So right in that little bit of a twilight as the sun was setting. No, I take that back. That's the landing. May 7th, 1992, 7:40 p.m. Okay, so that was right into the evening twilight. I know the sun's setting around 7:15 or something now. I believe Carlton Bailey took that shot with the Endeavour flag in the foreground there, and the rocket soaring away. First flight of orbiter Endeavour. They moved it. It was scheduled for 8:34 p.m., but moved to May 7th for an earlier launch window opening, which provided better lighting conditions for photographic documentation of vehicle behavior during the launch phase. Critical to get that on the maiden flight. It was a great story about this. All right, there's another beautiful launch. There, let me set this up that I heard from Bruce Melnick. Bruce Melnick said that this was Dan Golden, NASA Administrator Dan Golden's first flight. Dan was installed in April 1992 under the George H.W. Bush administration, the first Bush. All right. He lasted 9 years. All right. Till 2001, Dan Golden, the longest tenured administrator. He also he worked for Republicans and Democrats, because after George Bush, of course, was Bill Clinton, a Democrat, and then succeeding Clinton was Bush's son, George Bush. So I find that interesting. One of the few administrators, Dan Golden, had thrown a picture into him. But show you a picture of there's our buddy Bruce Melnick, who helped us in Shuttlefest 2. Bruce told me in his office one day, he said he had that picture up there, and I said, hey, what a mission, huh? And he said, well, I'll tell you what, Dan Golden came to our office, astronaut office in Houston, and said to our crew, okay, the EVA guys weren't there, but I was there, Brandon Steen, Chilton, maybe Kathy Thornton, and one of the other guys, and said, this is my first launch. Don't screw it up. Don't do anything out of the ordinary. I want a textbook mission. I don't want you to do anything that is crazy out there. That is what that is Bruce Melnick telling me this, what Dan Golden told him about Golden's first launch. And I wanted to add up how many he saw in 9 years. So I would say 6 a year average. He probably saw 55 launches or more as NASA Administrator Dan Golden. A lot of stories about him. I hear very tough guy to work for, but he did get results. So what did they do after Dan Golden said, don't do anything crazy out there on this first mission of mine? I don't want to deal with the media. I don't want to deal with anything that's too much. They did the first 3-person spacewalk, the only one ever done on this mission. And Bruce just said, I can't imagine what Golden was thinking when we were planning this and then pulling it off. Bruce may have taken this picture of Kathy Thornton, but he was inside. Kathy was on the robotic arm. Maybe the commander or the pilot was taking these pictures. Bruce didn't know. He said, I had my hand on the camera so much, I don't know what pictures I remember taking very well. The first EVA involving 3 astronauts. This is the Intelsat 6 F3 satellite, stranded in an unusable orbit since its launch aboard a Titan vehicle in March 1990. Well, 2 years later, it was captured by crew members during an extravehicular activity. It was serviced with a new perigee kick motor that would boost it up to its proper orbit. And the satellite was subsequently released in orbit, and the new motor fired to put it into a geosynchronous orbit, save a multi-million-dollar satellite and a multi-million-dollar use of it by the communication systems using it. So they, of course, did other things on this 8-day, almost a 9-day mission. This picture is May 13th. Well into their mission. Thowett and Heeb went out on EVA-1 to try to assist the robotic arm catching it, and they couldn't do it. Then they went out on another EVA the next day for 5 hours, and again couldn't. No joy. So then it cooked up to cram 3 people in the shuttle room there before they go out into space. And it worked. They touched it with their bare hands. On May 13th, 1992, three crew members of mission STS-49 hold on to the 4.5-ton International Telecommunications Organization satellite, and a six-handed capture was made minutes on the third EVA. So that was Hebe, Akers, and Thowett. And believe we've talked to Hebe before about that, Marty, out there. And then a couple days later, Thornton and Thowett performed another spacewalk to do some other things up there. To my knowledge, the only other astronaut to grab a satellite is Winston Scott, I think on his STS-72 mission. They were servicing a satellite there. So, all right, Carlton corrected me. Brandon Steen is in the Hall of Fame. Okay, in 2003. I scanned it. I couldn't imagine he wouldn't be in there. Thank you, Carlton. And check the audio there, Marty. Steve Jokums. It might be me holding up the paper in front of the mic there. So, and Dr. Keith Sewell, hello to you in Arkansas there. So, next up, after STS 49, that's happening in May, here at the end of the month, is the 40th anniversary of the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. And they give away millions of dollars in scholarships and have, founded by the Mercury 7 astronauts. Okay. 2, 4, there's all 6 of them there. Of course, Gus had passed away, but they include Gus's wife in on this. And they have done such a great job of inspiring youth as well as providing money and then following up on these youth. And we're going to be sad that Caroline Shoemaker, the CEO and president, is leaving to go to another organization, Kids Across the World, I think it is, which is sort of like a Make-A-Wish Foundation for children with life-threatening things to them. So wish you good luck, Caroline, but her last hurrah will be the Scholarship Foundation's Hall of Fame at the end of the month. And there is the medallion that these Hall of Fame astronauts are bestowed. Okay, pretty cool. It's pretty big, by the way. And who's going to be inducted this year is Bernard Harris, first African American to walk in space, and Peggy Whitson, America's most experienced astronaut with over 675 days in space. Peggy will not be attending in person. She may be orbiting the Earth on the Axiom 4 mission. She's the commander of the next private mission in a SpaceX Crew Dragon. This will be her second time to crew a Dragon for Axiom. Axiom, of course, wants to build a space station for science and pleasure. And she's up there with Lopez Allegra, have been up there, NASA astronauts. He's been up there twice. She's going up there for her second time. And she's also a former commander of the International Space Station. So 2 fabulous people there. I did meet Bernard Harris at last year's Hall of Fame induction at the cocktail party. A great guy. And I told him, we need you to talk out to Space Center. So Peggy's still in audio. Peggy's still an astronaut. As Carlton Bailey says, audio's fine in his Canaveral Groves Wildlife Estate. Here gives you an idea. They get the mosh pit of all the astronauts. This is Mark Usiak's photograph in 2023. I see Kurt Brown in the upper left, Lopez. There's to the left of him, there is Rusty Schweikert, and Skylab 1 astronaut, Dr. Who was he's in the back there. There's Hoot Gibson, Lauren Shriver, on and on. As I keep saying who they are, my brain freezes. There's John Grunsfeld with the blue shirt on in the middle next to Pam Melroy. And you see the medals around Mark Kelly and Roy Bridges there. And there's Mark's brother Scott, had already been inducted in on the left with the glasses. And there is the great Bob Crippen there. Good to see Cripp there. Rhea Seddon is next to Hoot, her husband and wife. And I see there one of my favorites, Blaha. And Scooter's on the far left there. So missed a couple, but not too bad for an old guy. Somebody that is in there is Eileen Collins. Okay. And did I not put that picture in there? What happened to that picture I put in there? Marty may have got to him before I changed the picture in there. Had a picture of Eileen Collins with our treasurer and another great friend of ours. So we'll just let that go. But look what I found. Eileen Collins's polo shirt that she'd autographed, and there's actually a hairball. She was one of the hairballs, all right, with Don Thomas, the 13th class of NASA astronauts. There is the close-up of the hairballs group there, group 13. Got a black kitty, okay. Got the shuttle, kind of looks like STS-3 a little bit. And the hairballs. And I sent that to Eileen, hope to get a answer back from her. Yeah, thank you. That's Joe Kerwin we were talking about there. Joe Kerwin way in the back up there. Thank you, Tom Usiak. And the lady in the back beside Scooter. I'm trying to figure out who that is. Is that Cavandi? But yes, they are amazing people, daughter. They are very amazing people, but they're just normal people in many ways. A few of them I've gone, really? You're an astronaut? Of course, I meet them 20 years after they were. But anyway, Eileen, we love you. What a great person. She loves our museum. She'll be back. And I think she'll pay her own way at a shuttle fest. She enjoyed it so much. But look at that cool little emblem. It's 90, must be 1990 when the group 13 was named on there. So when I found that, I knew I had a place for it in our women's gallery. And there's the pink golf shirt there next to of Eileen Collins. Her handprints are in the foreground there. We have handprints of Kathy Sullivan on the left. And on the right of Eileen, we have Sally Rides, the only place in the world you can put your hands on these three women, as Charlie Mars, our godfather, harvested those back in almost 20 years ago, probably. And so, Eileen, we're glad to have you on our wall of astronauts there. 80-some astronauts are on our walls in there, and Kathy Thornton's blue flight suit there. So can't wait to Kathy to come to Space Center, and we got to get her in the museum. She's been here before, but not to see this room. And Eileen Collins is now a part of that. So thank you all for watching today. Thank you, Go History Travel, for supporting us in so many ways. Hope you enjoyed what was going on this date. Everybody, and my daughter Jessie, JMon3 there, reminding you all to like, share, and tell your friends about us. And you are, as we're getting some increase in numbers there. Let's see here. I was looking at seeing what Steve Joachim said. The old PBS series, The Russian Right Stuff, had interviews with Leonov in Michigan about the failed Soviet program. That'd be something y'all might want to check out. But thank you all for watching. CB says Peggy's launching as being inducted. Okay. He's saying that as she's being inducted, we could have that launch going on. So that must be May 29th. I haven't looked up the date for the Axiom launch. Saturday's, what is Saturday on the calendar over there? Anyway, we got plenty of time to figure it out, all right? Thank you, Elena, for watching. But that would be cool, Carlton, that they broadcast Peggy Whitson in the Crew Dragon as she's being inducted into the Hall of Fame, going up to space, and a well-deserved honor for her. So, Marty Winkle, thank you for your job today, sir. We'll get through it one more time. And where is Marty here? Where's my... Here's Marty. There's my Marty. All right, there's Flat Marty. So thank you, brother, for helping us today. Do a wonderful show. Tomorrow, we'll look at some more space history. Maybe full moon will be next Tuesday. So you'll all be out and getting a bunch of moonshine this weekend. And we'll figure out something, but maybe you figure out something to me and come with a question or two, maybe about our museum. Uh, Maybe I'll just feature a few artifacts in the museum for your viewing pleasure. Thank you for all watching. Tom Celentano says May Axiom 4 is set for May 29th, early afternoon. Ooh, I like that. Uh, but wait, May 29th is what day of the week over there? Friday. Okay, just want the museum open so we could get a lot of extra uh, guests coming in here. And thank you, Steve Jokums. Okay, send that book to you. I was kind of waiting to get the shirt for you to send them together, my friends. So, but we'll get those things to you. So, thank you, Marty Winkle, again. Thank you all for watching. And once again, you all stay curious because I can't wait to bridge the space between us. Thank you so much. All right, good. Yeah, I wish I wasn't as fluid as I wanted. I should have sat down and put my paper together earlier, but